Welcome everyone to another edition of Play It Through, and on this edition it's Rockman 6, Mega Man 6, part of the Rockman Complete Works Collection for the PlayStation 1. Of course, with this being the last of the NES Mega Man games, this is the last of the Rockman Complete Works games to be released. It also happens to be one of my personal favorites of the classic Mega Man titles. With the Rockman Complete Works collection of games, they each have two different versions of whatever game they are for, one of which is the classic standard original NES version, just with the option to save via memory card instead of having to worry about passwords, along with allowing you more access to different buttons on the controller to make the game actually a bit better to play. And then you have the alternate mode, which has some dialogue with characters and gives you some hints along the way, along with changing up the item and health bars to better resemble the ones from Mega Man 8. For this run, we're going to be playing the original classic version of Rockman 6, and after the introduction, we'll get to the Robot Master selection screen. Mega Man 6 is one of my all-time favorites for sure, and it has some of my favorite Robot Masters. A couple of the ones I never was that big of a fan of, including the one we're going to be starting with in Plant Man. Plant Man is your standard forest-themed level, and we're going to start off with a couple of guys jumping down from the trees above, these grasshopper-like robots, and running quickly past them, making it to the first ladder. The best things about these Rockman Complete Works collections are the fact that you can use L1 and R1 to quickly switch between the different abilities, like you were able to in Mega Man 8 and the Mega Man X titles that were on the PlayStation 1 and even on the Super Nintendo. You also get the option to use the circle button on the controller in order to slide. This greatly helps you as far as not having to hit down and the X button or jump button in order to slide like you normally would. When we drop down here, we have this giant mech robot guy we got to deal with, jumping up into his head in order to hit him with as many full charged up shots as I can. Bit of annoying, he always ends up getting pretty close to me in his left side, and I end up taking a bit of a beating. Some of the other moves you end up getting, of course, work better on him, but since we're starting off with Plant Man, I don't have any of those at my disposal quite yet. Now, in Mega Man 5, we had to collect one letter per level in order to unlock the special ability. In this game, though, you only have to collect 4 letters, but the way you do it is a bit differently. 4 of the 8 Robot Master stages contain a letter or part of Beat the Bird Robot. To get it, you have to enter an alternative boss chamber. The boss remains the exact same fight, but you fight him in a slightly different location. And if you defeat him there, you end up getting the beat letter along with the ability. If you defeat the other normal version, you just get his ability. The thing is, you can re-enter any of the stages you've already previously beaten, and then go through that alternate exit later on in case you didn't have the right abilities to do so, because you do require the rush abilities, which are really cool in this game, and they are required to get to the special chambers. During this segment here, keep opening up these small little platforms, watching out for the fish that pop out of the water. They are pretty deadly and end up knocking you back down into the pit below. Use these springs to help us kind of bounce around and collect all the little mini health power-ups in the trees. I always thought this was a really cool kind of concept, like the flower there, and you're able to grab these. Then we're going to be entering the boss chamber for Plant Man. Plant Man is the standard Robot Master in all of the classics, it seems like, that has some sort of shield around him. At least someone that we saw in Mega Man's 2, 4, 5, and 6 here with Plant Man. We're going to be using full charged up Mega Buster shots. He runs around and jumps in the air every time he lands. He fires his shield out towards you. Other than that, he'll just kind of run towards you sometimes, usually jumping back the opposite direction from you when he gets close. Just keep landing those full charged up shots when possible. Sometimes you can land in 2 shots before he ends up pulling out another shield, but overall, this is a pretty easy battle. In fact, there's a couple of relatively easy Robot Masters, so deciding which one you decide to start with, you have a few options to do so. I'm doing them in the order I am doing so that I have all the rush abilities and I don't have to re-enter any of the levels to make sure I'm able to get all of the beat letters. Second up that we're going to be taking on is another one that I'm not the biggest fan of, and that is Wingman, though I do enjoy his level. It has sort of a Chinese theme to it, at least we saw it with the pandas, as well as his overall design to a degree. Wingman, though, himself was actually one of 2 Robot Masters designed by North Americans, including Wingman and Nightman being the ones that ended up winning the contest, though there were many that ended up being entered, and in fact were featured, at least a lot of the designs potentially, in Nintendo Power, just one of the many classic Nintendo Power contests from back in the day. Also interesting to note that the original Mega Man 6 in North America was actually published by Nintendo instead of being published by Capcom. Because of this, there were more copies of the game created, and thus why Mega Man 6 isn't quite as rare to find a copy of as Mega Man 5. These platforms, as you can see when you jump on them, they end up flipping over to the opposite side, so you have to move quickly. Here, jump up and slide underneath in order to quickly get past the spiky enemy before heading up and dealing with another one of the panda robots, who I'm a fan of. I love those guys. The panda robots, easily one of the best enemies in this game for sure. Here, we're going to wait for this guy to do his second jump using his jetpack, and then we can easily slide underneath of him in order to keep going. After dropping down to the next screen, taking out guys if you want to, we finally land down here, taking out another one of these panda robots before heading over to the right and using the fans. We have to, of course, be careful that we don't end up going up too high so that we don't end up hitting the spikes, which of course are instant death. Here, you can use the Rush Jet ability if you do have it in order to grab those extra items, but for now we're going to enter into the boss chamber. Now, I make a mistake and accidentally change my ability, but we're just going to be using Mega Buster against Wingman here. I get a little bit of ahead of myself. Wingman is one of the other Robot Masters that's very easy to take out with just the Mega Buster. His moves are, he's able to kind of pull you towards him, he kind of boosts up into the air, quickly flying over to the opposite side of you and then dropping down, being pretty easy to get underneath of. And his other move being that he has these 2 blades that he fires out, which are easy to jump over. Landing in full charged up power shots is very easy to do, and Wingman will drop in just a matter of moments. Next up, we're going to be traveling to Flame Man's level. Of course, there always has to be a fire robot master in these games, and this is the one for this one. One thing that I love about Mega Man 6 is the soundtrack. I think it's very underrated as far as the classic original Mega Man soundtracks are concerned, and one of the reasons for sure is Flame Man's level. Easily one of my favorite songs in this game, along with a few other great tracks like Centaur Man's level and Nightman's theme. When you make it up here, you'll be introduced to these robots that you're able to hit with a full charged up shot, in which case they will flip off the platform they're on and either destroy themselves or potentially land in the oil like here, so that we're able to move across. One of the really cool aspects of this level is the fact you have these other robots that shoot out fire, and if they hit the oil with their drops, they cause the oil to light. Just one of those little touches that ends up being a really cool effect overall. When dropping down here, watch out for a couple of the cannons before heading down the next ladder. And then heading off over to the right side, we have a spike guy waiting for us and then a flame throwing guy before we hit more oil. Now here we have to do a little bit of tricky platforming coming up, not only watching out of course for the fire so that we don't land in it and die, but also having to jump up around these platforms and not fall down. You can grab the E-Tank if you want by going down here and grabbing it, though you will have to backtrack to the left in order to get back on the platforms. There's a couple easy to grab E-Tanks throughout the course of the game, so if you don't want to backtrack that just a few moments worth of backtracking, you can just skip that E-Tank, but it is relatively easy to get. Then we're going to enter, of course, into Flame Man's level, and this is the first time we're going to be using the weakness against him. Pull out Wind Man's ability, and Flame Man has a couple of moves at his disposal. He'll cause a series of fire towers to spawn up right from the ground. You're able to usually get right in between them. He also has single-shot fireballs that fire straight out in a very slow pattern, allowing you to jump in between them. It won't take long, and just a few amounts of Windman's ability, and Flame Man goes down, and we're moving on to the next stage. Next up, we're going to be traveling the Tomahawk Man's level, another one of the cool designed robots as far as I'm concerned in this game, and he now is the first that we're going to be doing the alternate battle rooms in order to get the beat letters. We got both the Rush Jet and the Rush Power Suit from the previous robot masters we've defeated in Plant Man and then Flame Man. I also liked these cowboy-esque robot guys with just the single shot like revolvers coming out. I thought they were really cool little robot guys to deal with. Over here to the right we have a Met spawner. We're going to stand on this far left platform and just do little short jumps or full charged up Mega Buster shots. Trying to do our best to watch out for the Mets, though they can end up landing a couple of hits usually when I'm more focused on the Met dispenser. Right after that though, continue over to the right and you can slide through here if you want or just blast your way through a couple of these tunnel drill little robot guys. After a couple of Mets though, grab the ladder and head on up to that next room. Up here you'll run into Eddie. Of course, good old Eddie or Flip Top, whatever you like to call him, ends up giving you a random item. It seems to be more skewed towards the item replenishments in this one, at least from my luck, but it could be anything, health replenishment or even an extra life. Now here we're going to use the Rush Jet ability for the first time and blast our way up to this alternate ladder. We're then going to use the ability, watching out for these spikes, and make our way over to the right side. Since we have this ability, this is a cool little extra area that you can go to, though it is optional. On the last platform, you can get a big health replenishment, an energy tank, as well as an item replenishment. Drop on down a couple of screens, watching out for another enemy. I'm just going to keep the Rush Jet equipped for right this moment. When you make it down here, we're going to switch out for a second so that we can easily slide underneath this guy here before going into the next battle against another one of the Met dispensers. This time I'm going to head to the far right side so I have an easier platform to jump up from, dealing with the Mets and then landing those shots as much as I can. It won't take too long before that Met dispenser is done, and now we're going to switch back once again to the Rush Jet, and we have to use this to get across the bottom here. It's a little bit tricky to do so, but that's where you're going to need the head in order to make it to the alternative room. If you take the opposite ladder here, the one on the left side, that'll lead you to the normal battle room for Tomahawk Man. Head all the way up the ladder, and then you can grab a big health replenishment if you need it, then use the Rush Jet to kind of help you get back up so you don't end up hitting the spikes and then enter into the battle. Here we're going to be switching off and using Plant Man's ability to help us do battle with Tomahawk Man. Tomahawk Man has a couple of moves at his disposal, including using his headdress to fire out at you like big spikes that will travel out so that you have to dodge out of the way of them. He'll also, of course, jump around the room, and this ends up being relatively easy to get out of the way of, as well as he has his Tomahawk move, the Silver Tomahawk, that he fires out, and it kind of goes out straight in front of him and then quickly rises up into the air, being one of the better moves overall and one that we'll be using a lot during the later stages of the game. One thing that's cool is on the Robot Master selection screen, once you defeat a Robot Master, you'll notice that you either get a Mega Man symbol or a letter. If you have a letter there, that means that was the beat letter for that level, and if it's blank after you defeat a Robot Master, that means you missed something. Mega Man face means that there's nothing else to grab in that level, you have it. The letter means you've already obtained the beat letter, and then like I said, if there's nothing there, that means you have missed something, so you gotta go back to that stage. Here we're going to use the Rush Power Suit for the first time and bust our way right through the walls, taking out this guy who ends up having the spinning spear-like move in order to throw at us, firing off a couple of power shots so that we're able to not only take out him, but take out the blocks blocking our path. And then we're going to go over here to fight this really cool mini-boss here. This guy with a giant frog that he's riding. You can fire at the frog in order to take him out. Just normal, full charged up shots are going to be good enough in order to help us out. But I always thought he was one of the cooler little mini big guys that you fight during the course of levels in the game. No surprise that Yamato Man, whose level we are in, is of course Japanese themed. Yamato, from what I've gathered, means pretty much home, or basically represents Japan as a whole. So that's why they ended up going for that when they made this level. We have the awesome raccoons, or tanukis, I'm pretty sure is what they're supposed to be, though they don't have the giant balls, but they do throw out large balls. That's probably about as dirty as I'm potentially going to get during one of these videos. But either way, after dealing with those guys, we're going to keep heading on up to the ladders and heading off over to the right side here. I like to use the Rush Jet as much as possible, as I like to be able to fly over the tops of enemies and get past. Also, coming up this path that I took is the way that we get our next beat letter. For the battle against Yamato Man, be sure to get out Tomahawk Man's ability, and you're going to be able to fire it straight up at him as he's jumping, or when he's about to land, you can hit him. His main moves are when he jumps, he fires out the 3 Yamato spears that kind of spread out, that are easy to get between, and then he has his main weapon that he fires out straight against the opposite wall. He then has to run and pick it up, and during this time, you're able to land a lot of shots in on him, making it a relatively easy battle. The next level we're going to tackle is the second Robot Master designed by someone from North America in Nightman, having another one of my really favorite themes, and also another one of the beat letters located here. One of the other cool things about the game is if you've already gotten a beat letter in a level and then revisit the stage, the colors on some of the areas, the colors of the backgrounds and the like, do end up changing up a little bit, which is a nice little neat touch that you normally wouldn't see. Since you already have the letter, you're not going to really travel back to these stages, but if you do so, there is a slight little surprise for you. One item that I didn't grab in this run of the game was in Tomahawk Man's level, known as the Energy Balancer. This is the first game that ends up appearing in, and basically what the Energy Balancer ends up doing is when you pick up item replenishment, instead of just picking up item replenishment for the item that you currently have equipped, whatever weapon you have equipped, instead the Energy Balancer will put it towards whatever weapon you have that has the lowest amount of energy. The item ends up being something that you don't need, so I usually end up forgetting about it and missing it during the course of runs, but it is something that's cool that was added if you do want to go end up grabbing it. Be careful during this part, of course, that we don't land in spikes, so it's pretty easy to kind of get past. For those guys inside, like the little rock stuff, you have to shoot at them, they'll pop their head out, and then you're able to land a couple of shots, and they're taken care of. After meeting up with Eddie again, we're going to head up to the top portion here and start heading our way to the right, watching out for these guys. Usually I just jump over them to avoid dealing with them. If you hit them, they kind of get angry at you and just get a little bit faster. Just ignore them and jump over them for a much easier time. During this room here, you have a whole bunch of bouncy ball things on the ceilings and floors, and that's going to cause you to kind of bounce in between the platforms. When you get over here to the right side, equip the power suit, and then blast through this rock and fall through, which will lead us to the alternate battle chamber for Nightman. Be sure to equip Yamato Man's spear ability, and you'll have a very easy fight against Nightman. Nightman's actually the one I usually would start with as a child. I just didn't really have the direct order, didn't have a guide or anything for the game, so I always thought Nightman ended up being the relative easiest one, at least for me. Nightman has a couple of moves, one of which will, of course, be throwing out his mace ball-like move that will go out slowly and then retract to him. He likes to jump a lot. He does have a shield that can block some of your shots, but with the Yamato spear, you just throw your weapon right through that, instantly hurting him, and you'll do quite a bit of damage. Though I forgot to attack him in the front during this fight, but I don't forget it the second time around. Next up is my second favorite of the Robot Master levels in this game, and that is Centaur Man's level. It happens to be the water-based level for this particular game, and I've always loved the music, the whole layout of everything, and the fact that Centaur Man is just a really cool overall Robot Master. It makes him really truly stand out. After making it to the far right, we're going to drop on down past the enemies. There's some killer fish that want to attack us, and no surprise, in an underwater-based level, you have a whole bunch of spikes lining the ground and ceilings, so that if we jump too high, of course we'll end up clipping them and instantly end up dying. So try to do your best to avoid those at all costs, while continuing your way over to the right. When over here, just have to watch out for a couple of evil fish guys trying to grab a hold of you before dropping down to this cool area where the water is on the ceiling, rising up and down. When you're in the water, by doing a jump, you'll of course jump higher, so you have to do that in order to traverse the gap here. Right after that, you can slide underneath here in order to grab a big health replenishment, and then use your full charged up Mega Buster shots to take out these annoying little guys before heading up that next ladder. Once up here, you'll run into good old Eddie, who throws us an item replenishment that we're not going to need right this second. And then we're going to be jumping up and dropping back down into the water below. Here you have submarines that, when they float over you in their cloud form, will drop when they get onto the same level as you, or drop when you shoot them. The key is just make sure you don't get hit by these as they fall and get knocked backwards into the pit below, and the same goes here. You want to be very careful making these jumps so that you don't fall to the previous screen and end up going right straight into the pit on that bottom portion. For these octopus enemies, I like to just get hit and then run past them. It's much easier to deal with them. And then we're going to equip the Rush Jet, fly over this gap, and enter into the alternate boss fight for Centaur Man. Centaur Man's weakness is Nightman's ability, so be sure to equip that. Centaur Man's main move is the ability to flash the screen, freezing you in place, similar to Flash Man, as well as he's able to teleport around, making him a little bit difficult to track down, and he has a single shot that he fires out, and when it hits the wall opposite of him, it breaks apart into a big spread shot that ends up covering the room. But if he does it from a large distance, if you're standing close to him, by the time that spread shot gets to you, it's just going to go in between you, and you can just keep landing those Nightman ability shots, and he'll drop in a moment. The 8th and final robot master that we're going to be battling in Mega Man 6 is Blizzard Man. Now, Blizzard Man is the typical ice-themed stage, though he does have some cool enemies, including these sea lion dog mix guys that I've always liked, as well as you have these annoying little platforms that you'll see a bunch of Mega Man games. When you land on them, they count down, and when they reach 0, they explode. So, of course, you want to make sure that you're away from them before that ends up occurring. We have all the beat letters during the course of the game already, so we don't have to worry about collecting anything here in Blizzard Man's level. The platforms themselves, of course, the ones that are covered in ice, are quite slippery, making it a bit of a pain in order to deal with them. Here I just end up rushing through a little bit, end up taking a few hits, though I stopped to take out this shield guy before dropping down that next ladder. When doing so, I'm once again just going to get hit by one of the ice cubes from the giant squid-like guy, and that way I just take a little bit of damage and just scurry on past. The next screen has this giant submarine vehicle going up and down in the water. There's spikes in the water itself, as well as spikes on the ceiling, so if you jump too high or it raises up and crushes you into the spikes, you'll die, or if it goes too low and you're in one of those locations, you'll end up getting hit by the spikes that way. It's honestly not worth going after the E-Tank for that one, just because it can be a bit of a pain to get. Here you have to make a very quick series of jumps in order to get past these bomb platforms. Once you get past those, you're going to climb up the ladder, dealing with another one of the squid guys. You can fight them if you want, or just do like I do. Take a hit, won't take much health, and just run on past. Then, just take out a couple more bomb platform things and enter into the boss chamber against Blizzard Man. No surprise, we're going to be using Flame Man's ability in order to fight him. Blizzard Man has a couple of moves at his disposal, but he'll mostly cause a bunch of snowflakes to appear, in which case they will then kind of descend on wherever you're standing. His other big move is he will spin into a ball and dash quickly across the screen. You can't hurt him when he's in the ball form, but as soon as he comes out of it, gives you a good chance in order to land at least one shot. What's cool with Flame Man's ability is when it hits the ground, it causes a little flame tower, and some enemies will actually run into that. Once he's done though, we're heading on into the Mr. X Castle series of levels. As we begin the first of the Mr. X levels, heading off to the right, I love the background here. It has a really cool futuristic city look to everything, and I'm going to quickly switch over to the Jet Rush pack here, and I'm going to use that to help me kind of get through a couple of these guys and help me fly through a series of the next couple of rooms. Here I'm going to get up to this platform, taking out this cannon from a distance before then dropping off the platform and gliding my way over to the right. Takes a little bit to get used to the whole jetpack thing, because sometimes the momentum of you falling will be too much in order to gain enough momentum going back upwards, so you still have to be very careful. So only attempt some of the techniques when you feel comfortable using the jet rush pack thing. Use it though here in order to take the cannon out from a distance and then blast your way up to the next ladder. Just have to be very careful, of course, that we don't run out of ability while trying to do so and end up landing on the spikes. You also want to make sure you take out as many enemies as you can in your path, because of course you may accidentally end up landing on them or get hit by their cannonball shots and end up falling right into spikes or down into a pit. During the next segment, keep boosting your way around these guys, just kind of maneuvering around. Pretty easy to kind of just avoid most enemy attacks during this part of the stage. Make sure you hug the left on the D-pad just a little bit so you can get past the spikes and then enter into the first Mr. X boss chamber. Now, for the first of these fights, we have a robot called Rounder, and there's two versions of him that are moving around a track. There's a couple of weapons you can use to help you take him out easier: Flame Man's ability, Night Man's ability, or you can use full powered up shots from the Power Suit. If you do that, you can actually change the direction of these guys. I, however, like to use Flame Man's ability. I find it easier to kind of get out quickly, as well as it doesn't eat up a lot of energy. Just keep firing at him as he rolls around. Sometimes you'll miss your hit as it kind of like bounces off of him, but just keep firing and the boss goes down in just a matter of moments. Next up, we have a cool little space background going on there, and then heading to the right, we run into a couple of Mets waiting for us. You can drop down here and grab plenty of item replenishment for whatever item you used during the previous boss encounter, so you may want to refill it, especially if you use like Night Man's or something like that. It uses a little bit more, though for the most part, you probably have plenty, as it doesn't really eat up a whole lot of energy. Here, quickly do the slide across this bridge, going quickly so that you don't end up, of course, falling down. Pretty self-explanatory. Switching back over to the Rush Jet and flying up over here. Once on the next screen, we're going to jump over here, taking out this guy, and then continue on. Make sure you don't fall through the little openings so that you end up landing on those spikes. Here we have a similar room to the one that we dealt with in the last Mr. X Castle area. Just watching out for the skull little robots and the guys flying overhead. Most part, I'm just going to kind of avoid them, jump over them, and run underneath the other ones. You'll have a series of Mets waiting for you in the next room, and then entering into the next boss chamber. The second boss is the Power Piston. It's a very easy fight if you have plenty of Silver Tomahawk to help you out. Just stay on the far left side and use Tomahawk Man's ability to jump up and blast him with it. He will fire out shots a lot, dropping rocks on your head as well, but the Tomahawk does so much damage to him so quickly, it's very easy to deal damage to him, and it's a pretty fast fight. As the next level begins, you have two choices, a left and right ladder. Take the right one if you want to go the correct direct path. Go up the left one if you want to end up grabbing yourself an E-Tank. Here we have a couple of the flame shooting things that we first saw in Flame Man's level, and then we have these platforms that when you stand on one, as you can see, the other one rises. So you have to be careful and use them in order to guide you across, though if you use the jet pack, you'll be able to easily kind of manipulate your way through it, as I almost accidentally fell into the pit but was just barely able to save myself. The only thing that stinks is you won't be able to do charged up shots during this, so a couple enemies we will take damage from, or you can switch out, then use it, then switch out again in order to get back to the Rush Jet. Climb up the ladder here, watching out for another cannon firing robot, and then head up that next long ladder. Here we have another part of more of these platforms that we'll end up landing on and moving up and down depending upon which one we're on, and we just easily kind of fly over most enemies during this segment, though here we're going to drop off using the Rush Jet in order to land on that platform, and then use again in order to get to the right. Now you could use the Power Suit and really make that area easier, just destroy that block and get through, but just since I didn't feel like de-equipping the Rush Jet, I'm just going to go ahead and do that. Next up, though, is the Metonger Z, or Metonger Z, whatever you want to call it. It is a giant Met robot. And we're going to be using Blizzard Man's ability to take him out. Just jump in the air and fire out Blizzard Man's ability, and as long as one of the snowflakes hits him, it'll do damage. You don't get a lot of Blizzard Man's ability. In fact, you'll just have barely enough in order to take him out, so don't use any extra and don't use any prior to this fight, and it'll be a very easy encounter. As the next level begins, head on up and we're going to replenish some of Blizzard Man's ability by grabbing this big item replenishment here. Then watching out for a couple of cannons as well as the spikes on the ceiling. Just want to make sure you don't jump up too high when going across these small gaps. When you make it to the next room, take out the cannons if you want to. Climb up, you don't want to slide on the bottom portions here. We have to get up to this third one up here and then slide across that way. There's a few items here you can break open blocks if you want to do so, including that very easy to grab energy tank if you need it. Here we have these egg shooting things. Basically, they fire out eggs up into the air, and when they get on the same level as you, they break apart and the bird comes directly flying towards you. Climb up here, take out this guy. If you're really low on health, you can break open the wall if you like and grab a little bit of those item replenishments at the bottom there. Fire out at the shield, taking it out from a distance before heading off over to the right. You can make a couple of quick jumps and avoid the shield guy. Equip the rust jet and fly up to the left corner, grabbing the ladder. During this segment here, we're going to run underneath a lot of the enemies. For the most part, we can just kind of manipulate them and run underneath. A couple of them we will have to jump over, but even with that, we're still able to hover enough so that we have to avoid them. Now, you can easily fire out shots still using the rust jet, so you could take them out if you wanted to. Drop down a series of rooms. You can easily grab that E-tank if you would like, another very easy to grab one. Then continue along the right side, jumping from platform to platform. I'm going to use the hover ability to really help me out, and then enter into the next boss chamber. Now this is the battle against Mr. X. The X Crusher is in his control here, and we're going to be pulling out Flame Man's ability to help us deal with this fight. All you're going to want to do is jump up on the left side and deliver hits to him every time he swings back and forth. If you're going to get hit by the projectiles, not by him, because they do far less damage. You just have to time your jumps on the left side well enough, just short little ones, so that you don't end up hitting the spike ball as it goes back and forth. Once he's defeated, we have some dialogue revealing the true boss, of course, being actually Dr. Wily, and now we move on to the Dr. Wily Castle levels. I was never quite sure why they always decided to kind of fake us out as far as who was the real true enemy. We had Cornshaq in Mega Man 4, we then had Proto Man being the villain in Mega Man 5, and then Mr. X being in Mega Man 6. I guess try to trick us a little bit, or make it so that they could have two castles instead of one giant castle. But either way, of course, it's Dr. Wily. During the first part of this level, you can use the jet, of course, a lot to help you kind of make your way through, and then you have a series of rooms that you're going to be dropping down, watching out for spikes along the way. Land here, and then be sure to kind of just barely move over to the left so you're able to escape. Jump over this guy or get hit on the platform and then hover your way through. Much easier to do that if you take him out first, but I'm stubborn sometimes and just kind of run my way through. Here I'm going to use the item replenishment to refill some more of my Flame Man ability that I've used quite a bit of during the course of these castles. Watch out for this guy if you want. You can just kind of take a hit and dash on through him is usually what I end up doing. Then another one of the squid guys, and just once again, like always, I'm going to get hit and rush through before heading into the first of the Dr. Wily boss chambers. The first of these is my favorite for sure, and that is Mechasaurus. This is a giant dinosaur guy, and we're going to be using Yamato Man's spear ability to help us take him out. It's a very simple fight. Stay on the left side and watch out for his fireballs jumping onto the platforms he fires out. When you jump on a platform, you'll rise up into the air and you need to time a shot so you hit him directly in the eyes. You may have to dodge fireballs once in a while, but for the most part a lot of fireballs are just going to directly miss because of the timing of your jumps upwards and you falling back down to the platform below. As we begin the next level, heading off to the right side here, there's an easy to grab E-Tank if you want to grab that from the very beginning. We then have a series of the shield robots as well as those curling stone-esque robots. Then going up here we have some disappearing, reappearing blocks, my absolute favorites. Try to jump my way through this, landing up to this one, and that allows you to slide on through to the left side there. In the next room you'll notice a whole bunch of spikes lining on the ceiling. Don't have to really worry about them too much as long as you don't mess up that final kind of jump up the ledges. These guys can like knock you up, so just be careful to avoid them and you don't have to really deal with them. Easy to grab E-Tank, just kind of waiting for you in the middle there and then dropping on down. There's another item replenishment, so if you want to grab it, be sure to switch off what weapon you have equipped before doing so. There's also plenty of more items to grab when going through this segment here. Go over to the far right side and drop into the Dr. Wily level. Here we have to deal with the giant tank, the three-wheeled tank, and we're going to be using Windman's ability to help us deal with him. Just run up close to him, jump up into the air, and hit him about where his cannon is. You can even fire at the bubbles that he fires out and knock them up into the air. It won't take long because it's very quick to just keep hitting him over and over again, and he'll be defeated in a matter of seconds. As we begin the next level, we start off underwater. There's some fans trying to pull you towards them, and of course because of this it can be a little bit difficult to avoid the spikes. Plenty of item replenishments though throughout here, so if you're low on any item in particular, be sure to grab these so that you have a full amount of them before we get a little bit farther in and eventually to the rematches against all of the robot masters. Use the rush jet to help you get up to the upper left ladder, and once up here you'll enter into the chamber for, hey, guess what? The rematches against all the robot masters. See what they did in this level? Gave you plenty of opportunity to refill, but either way, jump into whatever chamber you want. We're going to start in the upper left corner and do the rematch against Yamato Man. Once again using Tomahawk's ability in order to throw them up at him as he's jumping, or when he lands, dodging in between those 3-shot spread shots, and of course landing plenty of shots if he throws that spear across the room, and then he has to go pick it up and we just land more shots and take him out. Second up that we're going to be traveling into is the rematch against Plant Man. We're just going to be using the Mega Buster again to help us out during this fight. Just jump over his shields when he throws it out and then land in those full charged up Mega Buster shots. Once again, a very, very easy fight for us to have. One thing that's a little bit different in Mega Man 6 compared to a lot of the other ones is the fact that after you defeat all the robot masters, you don't actually go to a Wily boss right afterwards. Instead, you teleport to the next Wily level, so you don't have to really worry about your health. As long as you have some health left after you defeat the last robot master, you'll be perfectly okay. Then we're going to head to the lower left corner and we're going to equip the Yamato Man spear to take on Nightman here. Now for the Nightman fight, once again you can fire through his shield using the spears, and of course consistently just keep on hitting him over and over again. It won't take more than just a few seconds, and we're moving on to that next fight. Next up is our rematch against Centaur Man. We're going to use Nightman's ability to help us out, firing at him whenever he reappears from his teleport. If he freezes the screen, we're just going to take a little tiny bit of damage from the projectile that he ends up firing out. He does a little bit more damage if he ends up running into you, which is a bit annoying, but still pretty easy fight. Halfway through these rematches, switch over to Centaur Man's flash ability, and we didn't have this the first time we dealt with Windman, but this is his weakness, so we're going to use it in the rematch here. Windman will of course fly up into the air using like his hover boots in order to kind of get across us, but we can just keep mashing that Centaur Flash. It will take up all of the ability to beat him, but it doesn't really matter. We don't need the Centaur Flash ability against anybody else or any of the final bosses. For the rematch against Tomahawk Man, of course, we're going to use Plant Man's ability, getting up close and hitting him with it. I really do this kind of lacklusterly, to be honest. I just kind of run in. I don't really care about getting hit. I still have a couple of Robot Masters to deal with, which will be pretty easy to do so. And I don't have to really worry about my health, of course. As long as I have just that bit left before the end and beat that final Robot Master, I'll be okay. We're going to use, of course, Windman's ability in order to take out Flame Man for the second time, dodging in between his slow shots, as well as easily getting between all of the flame towers that he ends up using. We're then going to jump up into the last chamber, equipping Flame Man's ability, and take on Blizzard Man. When the fight begins, of course, we're going to watch out for that big roll usually he likes to do. Sometimes he'll also do the other move where he just kind of uses the snowflakes around us. Either way, we're prepared and just keep launching the little flame shots at him, easily draining his health and defeating him. With that fight taken care of, go into the chamber that ends up spawning, and you teleport to the final Dr. Wily level. As the final level begins, start off by dropping off the platform. Be sure to get some silver tomahawk. You may need this for the final Dr. Wily fight, so having more of it will end up helping you out. When you drop down and head over to the right, you're going to end up having a rematch against the Matul. I'm just going to go ahead and use Tomahawk Man's ability since I do have plenty of it for the fight, and it only takes a few in order to take out the Matul dispenser. Right after, though, you run into Eddie. He may drop an item replenishment, which you may end up needing, so be on the lookout for that. And now it's time to enter into the final boss. The final boss this time around has 3 forms for Dr. Wily. The first one and the second one, we're going to use Nightman's ability to help us out, though you can also end up using the full charged up power shots from the power suit to help you as well. I start off usually by using Nightman's ability and drain all of this first before switching over. He fires out some big giant projectiles that you have to dodge out of the way of, as well as he jumps across the room. Quickly slide underneath him and get to the opposite side when he does so to avoid him. The second fight is more of the same, him jumping a little bit more sporadically, as well as firing out those single shots this time around. If you run out of Nightman's ability, and you probably will, switch over to the power suit, and then use that in order to hit him with the full charged up shots, and you'll be able to quickly drain the rest of his health going into the final form, which is very similar to the Dr. Wily UFO capsules that we've dealt with before, and Tomahawk Man's move is the move to beat him. When he spawns, just immediately use the Tomahawk Man move in order to fly him up at him. He uses a big spread shot that kind of goes around in circles, easily able to dodge around it, making this a really easy fight, and once he's done, you can sit back and enjoy the ending to Mega Man 6. So there you have it, Mega Man 6, like I said before, one of my absolute favorites. I remember when I was a kid getting my copy from KB Toys and absolutely loving it, going home immediately and just playing it for days straight, trying to get through it. It was actually one of the first of the 6 original Mega Man games that I actually fully completed. Mega Man 2 being the original one I did, Mega Man 4, and then finally Mega Man 6 being the third. I would then get the other ones as time would progress and be able to finally complete them as well. So I could actually beat them as a kid in a very, very weird order overall. This, of course, would be the final of the classic Mega Man set, though, of course, we got the 2 awesome Mega Man games, Mega Man 9 and 10, later on that brought us back to this age, and I really was hoping that we would just see a trend of them re-releasing them, because trust me, and I know for a fact, Mega Man fans would easily buy more of the games if Capcom just produced more and more Mega Man titles. Doesn't matter how many numbers we end up going up to, Mega Man is still beloved, and I know Capcom kind of doesn't really do a whole lot with a lot of the franchises anymore, but I really wish they would make more. There's plenty of great fan games out there. Some of them are really cool. Some of them try a little bit too hard to make the game too difficult. But still, I would love more official Mega Man classic games from Capcom, but probably a pipe dream at this point. Of course, like the other Rockman Complete Works collections, they have a gallery mode where you can kind of look through and get little profiles and information on all of the robot masters and the other enemies that you battle throughout the course of the game. It's broken up into 2 different categories, with the original one just kind of having all the normal enemies, and then the second one containing all the boss encounters. So many awesome overall designs for a lot of the robots in this game. It may just be nostalgia for why I love them so much in the long run, but I always thought this game had just such overall cool designs that really ended up representing their stages quite well. Then, of course, we have the second gallery. You get to see all the Dr. Wily and Mr. X themed levels that we had to go through. And then, of course, you get the really, really cool Robot Master artwork for all of the ones included in this game, which I absolutely love. Overall, just some really fantastic art. Some of my favorite Robot Masters. I love Flame Man, I love Tomahawk Man, I love Yamato Man. I love Centaur Man and Night Man, just absolutely great. So many Robot Masters that I think are some of the best the series ever saw. But with that, guys, though, that's going to wrap up this edition of Play It Through and my look back at all of the Rockman Complete Works Mega Man collection. I'd like to thank you for watching, and of course, I hope you enjoyed.